What's happened to our judiciary is beyond me.
Yeah, so when the American public hears this and they think these were once upstanding people in their communities and their professions, and they put it all on the line for this, I mean, have you dug into their motive? Like, what inspired them to carry out these acts and harbor criminals?
They're deranged is all I can think of. I cannot believe. I think some of these judges think they are beyond and above the law, and they are not. And we're sending a very strong message today. If you are harboring a fugitive, we don't care who you are. If you are helping hide one, if you are giving a TDA member guns, anyone who is illegally in this country, we will come after you and we will prosecute you. We will find you.
Our opening clip was Trump's Attorney General, Pam Bondi, telling Fox News that no one is above the law. That's a relief because maybe she can then arrest the lawless criminal in the White House. Trump keeps breaking the law with his illegal mass purge of the U.S. government, illegally blocking money allocated by Congress, and defying judges by illegally deporting people and illegally denying them due process. And that's not even the full extent of it. No one is above the law. Pam Bondi, stop cosplaying Putin's Russia, and anyone who truly cares about law and order must leave it all out on the field now in the little time we have left to stop the crime spree in the White House. The latest disturbing news and the onslaught of disturbing news, which I'll link to in the show notes, is that 2 judges in Wisconsin have been arrested for allegedly hiding immigrants facing deportation. You've heard this by now. It's like the U.S. during the time of the abolition movement, during the Fugitive Slave Act, or how doctors in the U.S. for generations faced prison and now do again today for providing abortion health care. We are back in the time of the Fugitive Slave Act. I know things are dark, America, and they are dark, and they are dark. We are experiencing here at home the Russian oligarchization of the United States. We've been warning about it on Gaslit Nation for years. Trump is the latest gold-loving, family-enriching, wannabe dictator like Viktor Yanukovych. Overthrown in Ukraine, by the way. Overthrown in a popular uprising. In this week's bonus show, Terrell Starr of the Black Diplomats podcast and Substack and I discussed Terrell's recent time in Ukraine, how things felt different in Ukraine when Trump came back to power, why Republican support for Russia keeps growing, and whether any of Trump's chaos may backfire against him and the oligarchy. The full episode is available for our Patreon community. If you want to join in, sign up at patreon.com/gaslit. That's patreon.com/gaslit. Discounted annual memberships are available. You can also give the gift of membership. Thank you to all who support the show. One thing I want to flag for everyone that I've been reflecting on is that we're living once again in an increasingly punishing time for our nervous systems. We're going without sleep, checking the terror on social media before bed, and as soon as we wake up, living with grief, anger, and helplessness. In this climate of dread and rage, it's easy to feel hopeless, to treat others like a punching bag. When people are scared, even if they're on the same side, there can be a tendency to attack, to punch down, when we should be punching up together in the same direction, at the same target. Our nerves are frayed in the smog we're increasingly forced to live in. He's only been back in power a few short months, which feel, of course, like years. How do we get through it? One thing you have to acknowledge, whether you want to or not, none of us are operating at 100% anymore. We may be productive, we may feel productive, but our brains would be so much freer, our internal operating system so much sharper if we didn't have this psychopath forcing his way into our nervous systems, like the dysfunctional king of a dysfunctional family. And remember, lack of restful sleep, that's one of the factors that contribute to a risk of dementia. So the brain fog many are feeling is real, and it has horrible health consequences. Do not let Trump kill you slowly in all the many ways he is trying, from rolling back regulations to so on and so on and so on. How do we get through this? How do we cope? This is how. And this is a reminder to myself. That is why I'm sharing it, because everything right now is just so much harder with this weight pushing down on us every single day. But here it is. This is what we have to remind ourselves. Every day, we have to remind ourselves, be gentle on yourself and others, especially when it's hard. Prioritize what you actually need to be doing. You cannot do it all. You will not save the world exhausting yourself and breaking yourself down. Prioritize what you actually need to be doing. Don't rush. It will all get done in time. All of our collective work will get done. We are like water. Be like water, my friend. As Bruce Lee said, we will erode their grip on power. We are water. We will erode them. Again, I'm putting this back on the list. Get plenty of sleep. Keep your phone on the other side of the room before bed. Practice good sleep hygiene by taking deep breaths, reading inspiring books, or listening to soothing music in a relaxed atmosphere. Protect your sleep like your life depends on it, because it does. The last images, the last experiences you have before bed, try to make them peaceful ones as much as possible. Practice radical forgiveness of yourself and others. Extending grace now to yourself and others is like fueling the tank of our collective resistance. If someone shows signs of not coping well, aggression, harmful behavior, create distance, limit engagement, stay calm, and don't get pulled into conflict. If you know them well and feel safe, consider reaching out privately to offer support. Many are struggling. Even well-meaning people can act out from fear or desperation. Help where you can, or focus on sustaining yourself during this difficult time. We are in a marathon, not a sprint. We're going to get through this, and we're going to unleash our creativity to rebuild our country stronger than before. That is the blowback against these tyrants that happen in dark times. People are forced to wake up. They're forced to pay attention. They're forced to reach their higher minds and be more creative, more resilient than they ever thought possible, and join forces together to build, and plant seeds and shift the culture in ways we can't even imagine. So there's so much extraordinary change that we've accomplished in just recent years alone. That's why they hate us so much. And I know they've been, as the culture has been shifting, as women have been dominating on the pop charts. I know that seems like a silly thing. It's not. That's real role models out there. That's real power. I took my kids to a McDonald's on a road trip. I know McDonald's fucking sucks, but I took them there on a road trip. Okay, we were driving on a long journey. And guess who was dominating that McDonald's? Angel Reese. WNBA, women's basketball has finally arrived, and it's just heating up. We haven't even yet seen the Simone Biles of the WNBA. It's all coming. So they hate this. They hate this, but you can't put that genie back in the bottle, okay? Gay marriage is here to stay. Women saying what needs to be said is here to stay. Black women are here to stay. We're all here to stay, okay? And so they're going to try to tighten their grip politically and try to punish and control us, but it's just going to backlash. But we have to make sure this happens. We have to build, be creative, be resourceful in order to force it, not like just expect it to happen like some supernatural phenomenon, because that's not how any of this works. There are cycles of history just by the fact that when people get cornered, they're forced to fight for their survival. And that's where we are now. All right. So I want to also reassure everyone that if you're exhausted, imagine how they feel. Putin was supposed to take Kyiv in 3 days. What happened to that? Defiance and love happened. I've met some of the worst far-right trolls up close, and trust me when I say this, they're exhausted and worn down. I met an infamous one who should have felt like he was king of the world. Bill Barr and Rosenstein had just covered up the Mueller report by claiming falsely that it exonerated Trump. The infamous troll that I met was at a march where he trolled me by posting an unflattering photo of me online, making fun of me. He should have felt on top of the world. This was his time to shine, but instead, a chance run-in with him revealed that he felt exhausted and worn down. I made him delete that picture. I'm like, I don't care how tired you are. You give me your phone, you delete that. Anyway, they're more exhausted than we are because they're operating from a place of ignorance and fear, whereas we're coming from a place of love and strength, which naturally sustains us. They're eating junk food. Okay, I know I mentioned the McDonald's reference earlier, but I am trying to eat healthier. Metaphorically, they're eating junk food, putting toxins in their body, and we're filling ourselves up with love and strength. So keep your heads up, pat yourself on the back for how great you're doing, and rest for the sake of yourself, your loved ones, and our important work together. We will get through this, and we will plant seeds of hope and change that will transform this country and the world for the better. We had a lively Gaslit Nation salon on Monday. The topics ranged from the Detroit uprising of 1967, how young people today are more engaged and fired up to fight back against fascism than is widely acknowledged. A lot came up in our salon, and I want to share an excerpt of comments I made, comments inspired by the wide-ranging discussion because they hit home what's central to our work ahead and how to know in this world of disinformation and demoralization warfare who to trust. Who do you trust? And it comes down to this. The only way out is through building political power. Who's in charge matters. Mutual aid and community building help us survive, find our people, and endure. But political power is what taxes the rich, enforces the good laws we have, repeals the bad ones, and forces accountability. You cannot do those things unless you are in power. So don't listen to the edgelords who romanticize the fantasy that voting doesn't fix things, that not voting fixes things, that everything and everyone is corrupt and doom and gloom, and I'm the only one telling you the truth. No, the only ones telling you the truth are the ones daring to be uncool by pointing out you want to make the bleeding stop, become the new political power, run for office, help good, empathetic people run for office. There's no other way. AOC understands this. We need more AOCs. AOC needs to be the norm in Congress. It can happen if we force a generational shift. Now, here's a clip from our recent salon. More on this.
The young people coming up, they also grew up in a very different information space, also extremely dangerous. And they were the first human beings to go through that. And his dangerous. And so we're still sort of understanding the impact on that. It's just so sad when you hear from so many people that have teenage children, high school, college age, they're depressed, lonely because social media is not a substitute for real life. Somebody on social media shared a post that went viral of a collage in a yearbook. And it's like some high school, and everybody in the collage and all these various high school photos are all like beaming, smiling, like their eyes are smiling. And the post went viral because somebody captioned it with, why were they so happy back then in the 80s? And then somebody else wrote, because they didn't have social media. Imagine going through the mess of childhood and every single mistake or dumb thing you did could become a viral global moment, and seeing the Machiavellian politics play out where on social media, where people of all ages can be vicious behind a keyboard and then magnify that. And then on top of that, you have these newsrooms trying to cater to that by hiring influencers, necessarily trained journalists. It's a monster eating its tail kind of problem. I think the larger thing that concerns me that I've been thinking about a lot lately, a lot of waking up to what's really happening and disillusionment and just survival mode and having to take care of your own. And that chips away at community cohesion. At the same time, though, you have also this attention economy that we're in, where everybody's an influencer, everyone's a content creator. And when you have such a crowded marketplace of ideas, the extremists win. And you have a lot of these predators, online predators, and it's not a conservative versus a liberal. A lot of our assholes do it too. They look at what the conversation is, especially of the day or the week, and they try to insert themselves to get attention in a way that's extremist. And it's all done under this guise of, you can listen to me, I'm the only one telling you the truth. And it's like, shut the fuck up. So my litmus test is this. Building political power is the only way out of this. There's no substitute for political power. The demons we're up against understood that. That's why they had this 40-year plan, and all these forces came together in retaliation for civil rights over 40 years, have been chipping away at our political power, voting rights, so on, packing the courts. They played the long game aggressively, consistently, because they understood. Our enemies understood the golden truth. There is no substitute for political power. Unfortunately, in the super cool, hipster, nihilist, extremist, edgelord culture that drives a lot of this attention economy online across the political spectrum, certainly of the left, it's not cool to build political power. With the exception of AOC and Bernie, who are doing the Lord's work, right? But the reality is we don't get out of this without building political power.
Now, this Monday's salon is the Gaslit Nation Book Club. For April, we read Octavia Butler's prophetic Parable of the Sower, a novel written decades ago set in a dystopian America under a Trump-like dictator where foreign corporations buy towns, enslave people, and the poor fight to survive. The narrator creates a belief system, Earth Seed, and provides practical methods and insights into how to survive a dystopian hellscape. We'll use the book as a springboard for our usual lively discussion. A Zoom link will go out Monday morning on Patreon, so join us there. We'll record and share the conversation. See you all Monday. Now let's move to Ukraine, which, after suffering under Biden's feckless national security advisor, Jake Sullivan, now Ukraine has to endure Trump's feckless envoy, Steve Witkoff, a lawyer and real estate developer, notorious, he likes to say, for brokering win-win deals. But here's the thing. Putin has been offered many win-win deals over the years to end the war, and he broke them all. Witkoff has been in Moscow today, where he had a big meeting with Putin, and Putin was very pleased with that meeting, reportedly, and I'm sure he was. I'm sure he was, because he's got another nice, juicy Jake Sullivan on his plate to devour and spit out. Russia, everyone has to understand, is now dependent on the war economy it's built to stay afloat. Its economy is so extremely fragile. The only thing it has going for it is the military-industrial complex. If it ends this war, it's over for Russia. It's total collapse. And the KGB dictatorship that rules Russia wants the Soviet Union back and won't stop at Ukraine. There is no compromise possible with Russia. Russia keeps telling us that with their actions. Don't believe what they say, believe what they do. But in Russia's case, it's not just their actions. They tell us on Russian state TV they're going to destroy Ukraine, turn into concentration camps, and they're going to Poland and the Baltic states, and they'll go back. They're going to keep going. They tell us on Russian state TV what they want to do. When somebody tells you who they are, believe them. That is the big lesson coming out of the times we live in. So there is no compromise, only isolation, strength, and containment. What happens next, and how are Ukrainians reacting to Russian asset Trump in the White House? And most importantly, will any of Trump's chaos backfire against Trump, Putin, and their global oligarchy? Terrell Starr, who recently returned from Ukraine, where he lived for the past several months, he and I discuss all this and more in this week's Gaslit Nation bonus show. To hear the full discussion, be sure to subscribe on Patreon for a fun, timely transition to our conversation. Here's Pink Martini, just out with their rendition of the Italian anti-fascist anthem, Bella Ciao, first sung by female workers in 19th century Italy, protesting inhumane working conditions. Bella Ciao was also sung by anti-fascist movements in the Spanish Civil War, World War II, and today in Ukraine, Iran, and Hungary, and in so many other struggles for liberation around the world. Here's a bit of Pink Martini's Bella Ciao.
Se io muoio da partigiano, hey! Oh, bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. Se io muoio da partigiano, tu mi devi seppellire e seppellire la sua montagna. Oh, bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. Seppellire la sua montagna sotto l'ombraccio del fiore.
All right. So I want to hear about your trip to Ukraine. I'm so happy that you're home. So tell me about your trip to Ukraine. Do Ukrainians feel that America is effectively under Russian occupation? And what major changes did you see in Ukraine since Trump became president? Because you were there for the before and after. Like, did you feel a difference when Biden and the Democrats, useless Jake Sullivan, was in power versus Trump coming in with his Russian wish list?
So the before and after, there was always some cautious optimism with Ukrainians, because I think that the Ukrainians' attitude was, okay, you got useless Jake Sullivan and the Biden administration, they're not doing enough and they don't completely understand Russia. That was always a prevailing attitude. But this election had them on pins and needles. And once they realized that Trump was going to win and eventually won, they really were unsure about what would happen next, maybe. But I think what Trump expected from them was pure capitulation. And it goes back to my earlier point that Trump, like to a certain degree, the Biden administration, they don't understand Ukrainian resilience. And I know that term is used a lot and it loses its meaning. But unless you live in Ukraine long term, I'm not talking about a visit. I'm talking about actually live there. I was in Ukraine for 4 months before I returned. And you travel around the country, you talk to people. What Ukrainian resilience looks like for people who can't appreciate that term beyond the actual word and its definition, it means that this is a country where Zelensky is highly unpopular for a wide range of reasons I won't get into, but their resilience means that you're not going to bully Zelensky, because if you bully Zelensky, you bully us. And they're saying that Zelensky is ours to do with whatever we want. It's not for Trump to do with whoever we want. We have a country next door that's literally committing a genocide against us. Do you really think that Trump is going to come and bully us and tell us what the fuck to do? No. And so I went on the street and was asking Ukrainians in kind of man on the street interviews, what do you think about Trump? And they all think, obviously, that he's a criminal in public and all these things that are not surprising. Above all, they are really angry that Trump would try to manipulate their internal politics. What really pissed off a lot of people was when he spoke with Yulia Tymoshenko and Petro Poroshenko, who Zelensky beat very easily, Poroshenko by 75 percentage points in 2019, actually talking to people like Tymoshenko who are irrelevant right now. And this idea that Trump can come in and push them and they can flex their will, and the Ukrainians are like, no. And so for those people who are not following Ukrainian politics carefully, don't follow Ukrainian social media, there's this idea that the threat of Trump withdrawing military support from Ukraine, it means that the Ukrainians will eventually cede land in their territory to the peace deal. But actually what the Ukrainians are doing is biding time. Now, to be honest with you, the Ukrainians are tired of this war, and mobilization is very unpopular. I mean, and if you have male friends, you understand this, or you have a conversation with a taxi driver, because all these people are subject to mobilization. And it's very aggressive, extremely aggressive. You can only go to Telegram to really see what's going on. You will appreciate how rough the mobilization process is on men in Ukraine. Despite all of this, people are still saying they're going to stay till the bitter end and resist against Russia, because their attitude is that, even if we have to do this ceasefire, we'll do it because it's just on paper, and in 2 to 3 years, we're going to have to fight again anyway. The attitude is that these people in America are paper pushers. And so they're selling this whole thing of peace to their public, but we know it's not peace. And they're also waiting on Europe. If Germany sends the Taurus missile to Germany, then that's going to be a game changer. So a lot of people are just waiting for these things to happen. I think I don't see that big of a before and after difference in attitude with Ukrainians, because slowly but surely, this whole concept of the American democracy is demystified. They had an idea of what our country was. And then now they see what's happening right now, like their whole thing of, this country of liberty and justice. They know that it's not what they thought that it was. And it's not taking them a long time to come to grips with it. They're just thinking about how it's going to harm them. But there's no sign of capitulation from any parts of the country that I've seen and I've been to.
The founding fathers owning slaves was more than a footnote. The principles exist on paper, but not in practice. And Ukrainians are like, oh, okay. So that's how that's happening.
It's how it's happening right now. But it's like I think also, since the Trump administration has been in office since, it's basically a little more than 3 months, I still think that time we still have to look to see how Ukrainians will further react to everything, because I think Trump keeps pushing, okay, we're going to push his peace deal. But then now you saw Marco Rubio say that we're going to decide in the next few days if we're going to move forward with it, because at first they said, okay, we're going to push this peace deal. But then he realized that this is a lot harder than I thought. There was another comedian, a Ukrainian comedian who's based in Berlin, say that the way that Trump talks about pushing a Ukrainian peace deal with Russia, it's like how people say that they're going to go to the gym and lose weight, and then after a couple of weeks they say, okay, I'm looking myself in the mirror and I don't want to do this anymore, and they just quit, right? And so that's what this Ukrainian comedian said about Trump's efforts to strike a peace deal with Russia. And I don't even like the term peace deal because it assumes that Ukraine was complicit in the war, and they weren't. So I just have an issue with the term peace deal used to describe what's happening here, right? It's a very one-sided issue with Ukraine being invaded by Russia and war crimes and genocidal acts being committed. But I don't think people are going to appreciate what Ukrainian resistance means until they see what it means for America to use all of its diplomatic power, all of its manipulation with foreign and military aid, and then Ukrainians simply say no. Because essentially that's what's happening, because when you look at this whole thing with the mineral deal, we see all these headlines saying, well, this mineral deal is going to be signed in a matter of days turn into weeks, turns to a month. And so we really don't know behind the scenes what the fuck is happening. But as far as the people are concerned, there was a coffee shop in Kyiv that was selling Americanos, and now there are Ukrainicanos. And it's just this small stuff where you walk around and you say, hey, how you doing? And people speak to you, where you from the States, and they're cool with you. Like, it's no thing with them, but they're like, fuck your government. And that's generally the attitude. And so you're not going to get this feel by going on these U.S. congressional trips where people take you to places exactly where they want to take you. But if you're somebody like me who is independent and I don't have a security detail and you go where you want, or if you have some language skills, you actually talk to people, you're like, yeah, America is cool and all that, but fuck Trump. Like, that's generally the attitude. Like, he is really met with resentment and anger, and they just see that him as in Putin's pocket. They also, they're second guessing everything. And so much of how Ukrainians feel and what their reactions are going to be, I think we're going to still be learning about it, because I'm going back into 3 weeks. And so for a couple of conferences and a few trips around the country in the East, the true extent of how Ukrainians are going to be reacting and resisting towards this remain to be seen.
There was this disturbing poll reported on by the Wall Street Journal looking at how Republican support or favorability towards Russia increased after Trump and Vance did their drunken frat boy hazing of Zelensky in the Oval Office, where the whole world watched appalled by war hero Zelensky being ambushed and Vance just being vulgar AF and saying like a total SNL parody. Did you not say thank you in the last 30 seconds? That worked on Republicans. What are your thoughts on that? Like, why, how could any normal human being watch such a thing and think, yes, I'm on the side of the bullies? Republicans.
Because, the reality is that Republicans are bullies. They bully people here. Again, let's go back to the whole transgender thing, right? Where you have an infinitesimal amount of human beings that exist in this country. Of all the things that you could be Johnny Badass about, you choose these people. No, seriously, like, I'm like a queer man, and there's something about straight men that is so obsessed about LGBTQ culture that really, it bewilders. Like, I know why, but it also bewilders me because I don't think about this shit remotely as much as they do. And again, I get it. But ultimately what it comes down to is that they're bullies, and bullies like picking on people who are weaker than them. And the only way that we can defeat them is to punch them in their fucking mouths.
Exactly. The only way to defeat a bully is by standing up to them. And I know the question I asked you is the answer was obvious, but I think part of my coping mechanism, and I think this happens to all of us in this moment of needing to stay human in a time of mass inhumanity, is sometimes we just have to say, what is wrong with these people? Even though we already know the answer. even though we've already made films and written books about the answers, because sometimes it's just the level of cruelty just forces you as a human being to stop and just say, you're evil. This is evil. And I remember when I was a community organizer working on the street trying to sign up voters in the 2004 election. I was in Portland, Oregon, and in the outlying area in Oregon back then in 2004 in Kerry versus Bush. That Oregon was a battleground state. So that shows you the progress that we've made, which is a good thing. We shouldn't lose sight of that. But I remember one of the people I stopped happened to be a Danish tourist. So obviously you couldn't vote, but we did get in a nice chat. And he was saying to me, I knew from George W. Bush and his wars, his invasions, that America was terrible to the rest of the world. But I didn't know how bad America was to its own people until I came here.
Really? So this is a Dutch guy?
Danish guy. And in Denmark, having high levels of happiness, high levels of social services, low levels of corruption. But it's to your point, is like Bush, Cheney bullied the rest of the world into these illegal invasions so they can enrich themselves. And that bullying, the Republican Party was ripe for Trump because it's always been the conservative element, the genocidal element, the hate ideology element of our country has always been a consolidation of bullies.